Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be featuring the Bart. Not just because I haven't featured this ship in ages and generally I don't play the ship too much, but more over the fact that I kind of want to do a bit of a series on positioning in a battleship. Or well, more importantly, central positioning in a battleship. Those that watch my streams, well, you know that whenever I play Battleships, there's one mantra that I keep repeating over and over and over and over again, and that is central positioning. If it is at all possible, I love having my battleship smack dab in the middle of the map. The reason for this is not just, of course, that, well, if you look at your firing range, you can basically cover the entire map, but it comes from understanding the role of the battleship. DD role, you cap and you spot mostly, and you fight other DDs, but that involves generally spotting other DDs. And cruiser role is kind of just, well, dealing damage and utility. But there is one thing that the battleship is so good at, and often people think this means tanking damage. That's battleship's role, and people tend to misunderstand this, thinking I need to tank in my battleship, so they push into these needlessly vulnerable positions, and then they get torpedoed, or they get farmed by a cruiser hiding behind an island, or they get farmed by a cruiser hiding in a smoke. And yes, they're taking damage, but they are needlessly, pointlessly tanking that damage, and it doesn't really benefit the team in any way. No, in my opinion, the fundamental role of a battleship is area control, area denial, and overall map control. Few ships are better at exuding map control than a battleship. See, that's one of the reasons why I love getting into the central positions, because, well, battleship guns are unique in this game. Anyone who gives broadside can get blapped, and they can get blapped hard. Cruisers, battleships, of course it depends on the battleship caliber and so forth, but generally speaking, a battleship in the center can bring its main strength, which is its guns, to bear on anything on the map. And in doing so, it shows so much presence and so much danger that every other ship on the battlefield has to kind of be worried. They have to take it into account whenever they turn, whenever they push somewhere. For example, these guys pushing this flank, because I am in the center, I can shoot their broadsides. They're dealing with the ships in front of them, and because of my central position, I can shoot their broadsides. I have a lot of map presence right now. I have a lot of influence on how I'm forcing the enemy to push to sail to basically control the map. On the other hand, if they would have done the same thing on the sea flank, well, because of my central position, I could have just turned my guns to that side instead and done the exact same thing. In fact, you're seeing the Mines is turning around. He doesn't really want to push that flank anymore, and I am forcing them to change their plan. I am forcing them to play around my position. And this is really what a battleship is so good at. Getting map control for your team, making it hard for the enemy team to maneuver. The problem is when all the battleships go to the flanks. If you see, look at all the other battleships on my team, we have the Georgia, the Tirpitz on one flank, the Sovietsky Soyuz on the other, is that, well, they're too far away to really support each other, because the maps are so large. If you're sitting at the flank, you're going to struggle to really support the other side. And of course, any enemy ships in the center, if they can shoot, can be somewhat vulnerable, but you lack that crossfire capacity. Now, Bart, let's speak more of this battleship in particular. 380mm guns, reload booster. Yes, I love taking a central position, but that doesn't mean I want to go nose in. Yes, you have guns in the front, and it means it's fairly tanky nose in, but you have 32mm plating and 69k health, which means that if you're nose in, you can start being farmed by enemy ships. And once again, because we're exuding presence in the form of our guns, our role here isn't to be a damage pinata for people to farm. I see on the enemy ship, I see Ibukis, I see Mines, I see Chapais, I see Shores. These are all great HE spammers, and if the lighter ones are spec'd for IFHE, well, they're gonna be doing massive damage to me. So obviously I don't want to be parked nose into the camp. I want to keep my nose pointed away from the enemy, so I do have the opportunity, the freedom to disengage if I so choose, if things get rough. If I suddenly get torpedoed from somewhere, If I eat some random ass huge penetrations, if I get set on triple fire, I'm forced to damage con, I want the opportunity to be able to disengage from the situation. So you can hold a central position while at the same time having the freedom to disengage. Note that I'm showing my broadside towards the Amagi, but there is an island between us, and as long as I keep that island between me, no one else really has any sort of broadside shots on me. And this is something you want to keep in mind. Central positions, even though they are very, very strong and very powerful, they are also more vulnerable. So if you want to play the central battleship position, map awareness is so important. Now the good part about playing a battleship is that the reload is fairly long. So in between these shots, when you're waiting like 25 seconds, 30 seconds for your guns to reload, you can take that time to look at the minimap. This is one of, in fact, people ask me, how do I learn to play a battleship well? How do I basically learn map awareness? And I always say, play a battleship. Because there are these natural breaks in battleship gameplay every time your guns are reloading, and this is the time that you can basically train yourself to look at the minimap. The things you want to look at is, of course, first glance at the enemy movement. Has there been any new changes? And then glance at what exactly is my team doing? And then go back to shooting, selecting targets, shooting, and so forth. But if you keep doing it and you build it into a habit, you will notice that your map awareness will grow greatly. And the more you do it, the more effective it will become. Some trolley dispersion here. I would have hoped to kill the shores. Would have hoped to do more damage to the Chapayab. But regardless, looking at my right flank, I can already see that my Sovietsky Soyuz is going to get overwhelmed. And my Donskoy has ran away so far. He's probably not going to be able to support too much. So that flank is going to start leaking soon. Now, I do want to help as much as I can, and I do want to maintain this crossfire. But once again, we don't want to go nose in. Because if we go nose in, and suddenly we start being farmed, we're going to eat so much unnecessary damage. If we can still bring our guns to bear while reversing, what is the advantage of going nose in? There really isn't much, because we're not going to be YOLOing that flank anyway. Chapai pops up, catch his broadside, break his engine, pop reload booster, hoping to secure this kill. One of the reasons I really want to secure this kill is because there's an Akatsuki down south, and if I do kill both the Alaska and the Chapayev, or even just the Chapayev, and get rid of some of the radar threat, he will have much more freedom, and he will be able to play more aggressive, and he will be able to provide more spotting for the team. So basically, I'm trying to help my DD as much as I can here. And this is something you need to keep in mind. Your average battleship will almost always shoot enemy battleships. You see this so often, especially if it's some sort of broadside. They love shooting battleships. I've seen this a lot. I don't know where it comes from, but battleship players love shooting other battleships. The order of priority should pretty much always be DD, radar cruiser, other cruisers, and then battleships. There are of course exceptions when you have full broadsides that you know you can citadel and you can do massive damage, but whenever possible, try to kill that radar cruiser. You get rid of him, your DD gets more map control, you get more information, and you also get more map control, and you don't have to worry about any sort of surprise flanks and so forth. Information drives this game, and radar cruisers and enemy DDs are one of the main sources of information. Note that I haven't actually moved that much this game. I've been basically one square away from B the entire game. I know he's going to turn away, so I'm waiting to get the most perfect shot possible. I'm only going to get one shot, so I'm trying to get the juiciest one I can. But sadly, Bart Dispersion at times can be quite trolly, and I only do 6,000 damage. Luckily, the rest of my team also chimed in, and combined we did take him down. At this point, I am getting a bit worried, because, well, first of all, looking at minimap positioning once again, we have 2 BBs in our spawn. They have 3 BBs pushing up here. All their cruisers, however, are down south, and all their cruisers are able to use island cover and farm, and my cruisers are actually about to be crossfired right now. So this is one of those moments when you need to realize, hey, our positioning was good, but now it's starting to turn into a weakness. All our BBs are on the same area. This is something I often highlight. Do not let all your BBs be in the same square or in the same vector. That's very important. You want to force the enemy team to push into a crossfire if they want to push into you. That's why I like that central position, because if the enemy team wants to push either flank, you're creating a crossfire on them. But in this case, all our BBs, if you look at the minimap, this Friedrich Grosse can go nose in against all 3 of us. We have no crossfires. In fact, I'm forced to switch to HE here to deal more damage to him, because once again, with reload booster especially, this thing is a very good fire starter. I'm forced to switch to HE to be effective. because they are no longer those juicy broadsides that we want to get. In fact, whenever I play Battleship, people often go, Flamu, how come you get to shoot so many broadsides? And when I play, I never get to shoot those broadsides. But they never really analyze it a bit further and go, wait, where exactly are you going with your ship? Oh, you're positioning over there. That's where you're getting those broadsides. So both Georgia and Sovietsky Soyuz are now occupied with these two BBs, and my team is struggling because they are about to get crossfired from both flanks. So this is a good time to play aggressive. I know that there are no torpedo threats. I know I can't be YOLO'd, and Jean Bart with the speed boost is a very fast battleship. And sometimes you need to try to take advantage of that. In this case, I want to open up this southern flank for my team, and more importantly, I want to create a crossfire on those battleships up north. We're planning a lot longer ahead right now, because my torpedoes goes down, and now these BBs are getting a lot of free reign in our spawn, so it's time for me to get something done. The shores is a juicy target, but he's nose in, something I just highlighted you should never ever be, which means that he has no chance of actually outrunning me. So I'd rather try to do some broadside damage on this Sovietsky Soyuz, force him to angle in, because, well, giving that much broadside, even if I can't citadel him, means that I will be getting a lot of damage in. Takao, Neptune, as you can see, they are getting boxed in. The enemy team is getting this boxing in thing that I was so very worried about. So this is where we absolutely have to eradicate the enemy in the south and give my team a breather. 3 of my ships are now in the same square. That's a terrible situation. That's the worst thing you want to happen, because the more boxed up your team is, the easier it is to play around it, because all the threats are in the same position. Pushing around the island though, these shores nose in, something that you should absolutely never be, gets devastated through the nose. 380mm guns, they don't overmatch much, but light cruisers, especially the likes of shores, do explode. Mines is trying to get in behind the islands, so I pop reload booster, because the whole purpose of this flank around was to make sure that these cruisers that were using the island and using the terrain can't reposition behind other terrain. If I allow him to get behind the islands, Mine's DPM is completely absurd, and he could absolutely be farming us to death from behind it. So using the reload booster just to make sure that this guy dies before he gets into cover is very important. Also, if he's behind the islands, I can't play aggressively on that flank, because there's a risk of being torped if I try to push there. With 3,700 health left, there's no way he's gonna survive, and I take him down with an AP volley. Now, my cruisers, the Takao, for example, can sail in behind the island into cover. My ships have a safe haven, so to say. My team has a safe haven, and the enemy team, well, they played a bit too safe. They should have played more aggressive. They've gone too wide out on the flanks. And this is something I don't like. Once again, I've never been more than a square away from B this entire match. I've just been sailing around B, honestly in circles almost at this point. Because a battleship in the center is the strongest possible battleship. On the flip side, a battleship in the center is also one that is the easiest one to focus down. And that's probably why I really like that position. Because it can be challenging, it can be difficult to keep track of everything, but if you play it right, you get access to all the broadsides all the time. And this is when people ask me like, what is your secret? How are you getting this many broadsides? I never get this many broadsides when I play. It all comes down to a simple thing. Positioning. That is what drives World of Warships. That is the single most important thing, and the single most hardest thing to learn is positioning in World of Warships. It looks easy when you look at it on a video. Oh, I would have done all those same things. That was very easy. Like, that was very fortunate. But then when it's your turn to do it yourself in a battle, you realize, damn, because there's not always a best choice to make. Sometimes you're forced to make terrible choices, and it's all about choosing the least terrible one. This game ends, of course, being Jean Bart and running dragon flags, a ridiculous amount of credits and XP, a devastating strike, Confederate, and a high caliber, and of course, because we did eat a fair bit of damage, but note that we never actually got anywhere close to dying. I was never at any risk of actually dying, but I still got the Dreadnought and the Fireproof rewards, which are given for tanking a significant amount of health. So yes, I was under fire, but I was never a risk of dying type of fire. The only times I took damage was when I was willing to take the damage because I liked the position I was in and I liked the map presence that I was exuding for my team, the crossfires that I were providing. And those are the situations where you want to tank in a battleship. When you're providing a crossfire, then it's okay to take damage. If you're forcing 4 other ships to angle away, give broadsides to other ships, or if you're just getting the juicy broadsides, it's perfectly fine to take damage then. The problem is a lot of people insist on pushing into very, very vulnerable positions, nose in, being farmed, and not really providing a whole lot. If you've got 2 nosing battleships in front of you, and you're a nosing battleship and you push into them and the enemy cruisers start farming you, you're not really providing anything besides padding the damage numbers of the enemy team. And that's something to keep in mind. Yes, you can, there are exceptions. For example, Yamato can be effective map control, even going nose in because of the match, and Kremlin at close ranges because of the power of the guns can be very, very potent, but most of the time that central positioning is where the secret lies, at least in my opinion. Note that this is of course only my opinion from playing the ships, but I love playing central. 7 citadel's, 3 kills, 235k damage. Could have been significantly more towards the end. Of course, I had, because of the way I positioned around the island, I was going to get broadsides on both the Georgia and the Sovietsky Soyuz, but the game ended before I could finish that maneuver. 2.5k base, of course this is a top tier game, and when you are a top tier battleship, I really, really want to see the things I saw here, which is exude that control. You are the top dog. This is the worst thing that happens is when you are that top dog, you're that tier 9 BB, and then you sail to the 1 line or to the 10 line where your presence is the smallest. You're bringing probably the highest health pool, the best armor, and the biggest guns, and you're putting them in the corner of the map. Like, how do you expect to utilize your tier advantage if you have already marginalized your presence on the map? That's something people really need to adapt to. Detail report wise, 89,000 damage received, most of it HE, because, well, there were a few situations where I could have gotten shot with AP, but never really those flat broadsides, because I was always careful, either with enemy, where the enemy was pointing their guns, or making sure that perhaps there were other juicy targets when I was giving broadside, or alternatively, just of course, the basic angling. 5 fires, but they were all single fires. I never actually damage con them because I'd rather let a single fire burn out that I can easily heal than damage con and get multiple fires on me. Overall, this was the first of examples. This was the Bart, which has lower caliber guns, but is a faster ship. So this thing needs a fair bit of broadsides to be effective. The next one that I will be featuring is the Yamato. Once again, the focus will be on the importance of that central position and just how powerful a ship like Yamato can be. Let me show you guys my recommended build for this ship. Right, as always, let me start with the modules. Consumable-wise, well, these days there's not much to talk about, is there? Upgrade-wise though, main armaments mod 1. One of the great weaknesses of the Bart is the front turrets. The surface is quite flat and it's only 430 millimeters, and as many battleship players have learned, this can be exploited quite easily. The turrets are large and wide, which makes them quite easy to hit, and other battleships tend to target them a lot. They are easy to break, and in fact it's a tactic that I myself have shown you guys. I think in the Iowa commentary I showed you guys how an Iowa can easily just completely demolish the turrets on a Bart and leave him helpless. So that's another reason why the just sitting nose in tactic, it has its moments, but as the game shifts away towards more of these narrow torpedoes like the Holland, these super fast narrow torpedoes, these huge HE spammers like the Smolensk, and just all these huge caliber battleship guns like we have seen Georgia, Thunder, Ohio, basically all these big guns that can absolutely devastate your turrets, sitting nose in the Bart is becoming more and more vulnerable. And honestly, I highly recommend a more maneuverable playstyle. And as you saw from my positioning in that previous commentary, give yourself the option to disengage. Give yourself the option to run away. Because yes, you're quite tanky, but ultimately you're still a 32mm coated 69k health ship that can absolutely get melted down, and the turrets can absolutely be broken. No need to put yourself into that situation because the firing angles while kiting are still quite good. which leads us to the second upgrade, action time on your speed boost. The speed boost is pretty strong, 8%, but more importantly, boosting this 270 seconds is just so valuable. Third upgrade, speed, better dispersion. Not speed, better sorry, I need to have some more coffee before I do this. Better dispersion, additional tankiness, because once again, you are a prime target for HE spamming, so try to reduce it. Concealment, because your concealment is pretty decent at 12.9. And finally, faster reload. This of course also synergizes with that main battery reload consumable. And when you already have a fairly short reload, which is 22.9, and then you can cut it in half, you obviously get a greater benefit from it. Captain build wise, if you have Honor, he's the best battleship captain almost in the game. Kuznetsov, I would say maybe Kuznetsov is better. John Doe isn't quite as good, because even though John Doe does have improved expert loader, Jean-Bart has, or Jean-Jacques has this one, the improved adrenaline rush, which means the lower you go, the faster your guns reload. And an improved version of one of the best perks in the game is obviously fantastically good. Priority target, adrenaline rush, superintendent, fire prevention, concealment expert. This is the order in which you should spec. I would say that your turret traverse is fast enough that you can go expert loader before you go expert marksman, but if you do have a special captain and you can get the improved expert marksman, it is a pretty nice benefit. And finally, last 2 points into jack of all trades. Flag wise, pretty straightforward. Battleships should always run, I would say, reduction in fire, reduction in flooding, healing, and faster consumables. On this ship, I like to see Sierra Mike for the additional speed, and your AA values are actually pretty good, as is often the case with these French ships. The AA values on these ships are quite good, so there's no reason not to spec the AA flag on top. I do like the ramming flag on the Jean-Bart because, well, you do end up in a lot of nosing situations, and you do end up with your turrets broken, and when that thing happens, you do want to have access to the final torpedo, which is your ship itself. Besides that though, whatever economic flags you want. This commentary was not so much focused on the battleship itself, because honestly, I doubt that at this point people don't know what the Jean-Bart is, how it plays, and so forth. It's kind of the same case with the Yamato commentary I'm gonna make. I'm not gonna go into the details of the penetration and the reload and all these things, because this is more of a battleship series focused on one thing that people struggle with, and probably one of the hardest things in the game, and that is mastering positioning. It is difficult, but the better you get, the more astronomically your results will rise. I haven't played the Jean-Bart that much lately. I think I played... How many games have we played? Where is my Jean-Bart? I've only played 12 games in it recently. But even then, Jean-Bart can still pump out some serious damage, and is absolutely a scary, scary battleship. It might not have the sheer game carrying capacity of the Georgia, but on the other hand, I do so much dumb stuff in the Georgia, I just get myself killed all the time. But that's another ship, and that's another completely different playstyle. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I will talk to you guys later.